So today we are back on the RX-7. As you can see, the hood is on. The hood also doesn't really fit. There's some stuff that's too big, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Where we're gonna start today is the AC condenser. So that's where we left it last time. I did not have one. Now I have one. Now I need to make it fit and then make a mount for it and the radiator and get it all in there and hopefully fitting so the hood will close. So let's get started. And there you have a radiator and an AC condenser mounted firmly in the car. So if you wonder why sometimes it's a long time between RX-7's updates, that's because that took me 2 days to do. And the reason it took so long to make this is not because it's like hard to make L brackets, you know, but because I had to take this thing in and out, I swear, like 20 times, then measuring and trying to get everything right, like on the front and on the back, all the spacing. It just takes time. We wound up with like 4 kind of L-shaped brackets there. There's one there, then on the bottom we've got this guy over here and this guy over here. And this is not the final hardware. You can tell I'm still missing some bolts. It's just what I had around. I need to get some hardware for that. And so in front of the radiator here with the fans, we've got not much clearance. You have about a finger width there. And so that's not gonna be good for like trying to work on the engine, right? But the thing is this fan shroud is held in with 3 screws on the top, 3 screws on the bottom, and then it just lifts straight up out. And then you've got like an extra 4 inches to get a wrench or whatever in there. So I'm not really worried about that. The AC condenser, that was actually pretty easy to fit in. The kit, so this is a vintage air AC condenser. It came with these brackets right here. So those just screwed in. I sandwiched them in between the mounts for the radiator. And then I spaced it off the radiator with some neoprene foam here, like weather stripping. And so it's kind of held up against the radiator. And if it vibrates, it's gonna be vibrating on the foam and not metal on metal. So that's all good. And then up here in the front, we still have room. We'll be able to mount our, what is it, the AC dryer, probably like right about here. That's actually where the stock RX-7 one was. And then we should have room to snake our connections through this hole right here and get everything back to the car and the AC compressor right there. So that's all mounted. Now I need to figure out what's next. All right, so whenever we took the old engine out of here, the original engine, we just kind of ripped all the wiring harness out of there. I think Mr. Nobody actually labeled 1 or 2 wires, but me and Alan did not. So I've been spending a lot of time going through trying to figure out what all the different wires go to. I wanted to show you all this. So this is pretty cool. It's the 1986 Mazda RX-7 workshop manual. And in it is wiring diagrams. Not just wiring diagrams, but look, they show you where all the parts and electronic pieces are in the car. They show you the different types of connectors that are on each one, the colors of the wires. So this has been like super useful going through trying to figure out exactly what I need and exactly what I don't need. And the answer actually is, I don't need a lot. Like really the only thing you need if you're doing an LS swap is the accessories that you want to run. So like the headlights, the wipers, that's the sort of stuff I need to keep. But like the starter wire, the engine temperature, all that stuff, if you buy an LS engine harness, it comes all on there. And so really all you need, again, is just all the little things that you want, like the horn. So I think I have a good idea of what I need to get rid of now. I'm a little hesitant to do it because once you cut it, it's gone. You have to repair it if you need it back. So I'll cut wires at some point, but right now, what we're working on, we've been waiting on parts, but some of them got here. So the next thing we're gonna do is work on the heater hoses, which sounds kind of silly because it's just heater hoses, right? But the thing is, I wanna get all of the cutting and welding that I need to do on the firewall done before we take the engine back out of here and put it back in. And I need to make sure all the clearances with the headers and whatnot fit. So while the engine is in here, I know, so that's where the old heater hose used to come out. There's another one over there. Whenever we pull the engine out, those will get welded up and covered back up. But before we pull the engine out, I need to figure out where the new heater hoses are going. And so in trying to figure all that out, I actually found some pretty trick parts for this, which are pretty cool. And so this is the old heater box right here. I say old heater box. It's also the new heater box. It's the same heater box, but these pipes right here came out the firewall. And so we need to cut those off, right? And then we need to adapt to them. So you could just put like a regular heater hose on there and clamp it down and that would be fine. But we have to go through the firewall, and a rubber heater hose vibrating in a metal firewall, over time it's going to not work so well, let's say that. So we need to go from this through the firewall up to the heater connections on the water pump. And so to do that, I found this company called Aeroflow, and what they do is they make AN line connections that will go onto just your 5/8 inch heater hose here. So when we cut this off, I have a little tool. We're gonna put like a little bead, just like that, a little bead back in the hose. And then these things, they slide over the hose and they clamp down, and then you have an AN line connection on the end of it. So we're gonna use 10 AN line, which is like the right size for 5/8. I don't pretend to understand the conversions, but 10 AN line is the size you want for a heater hose. And then we're going to run that to, this is a 90-degree 10 AN line bulkhead fitting. It's just an elbow with 2 nuts on it. And so there is room. I've been doing some reading, and this little circle right here in the firewall, you'd think there's something right there, and there's really not. Behind it, there's a bracket, and then that spaces the air conditioner evaporator off of the firewall. And that is right here. So actually back here, you can see the wire harness is going back there. There's almost 2 inches of space behind this. So we're gonna take this out, and we're gonna cut some holes in the firewall, and then that should allow us to have the heater box back here where it originally went, run some hoses down there, do some elbows, go through the firewall somewhere approximately here, and then we'll run our hoses down to the water pump and make our connections there. Which I think, yeah, the same Aeroflow company, I got connections for the water pump too. They make connections that hook right into the water pump, so this should be super easy. I always say that. Let's just get to it and see what happens. All right, now if you look closely, you'll notice that the car is somewhat going back together. So the heater box is back in, the AC evaporator is back in, and behind those are hoses. So if we take the evaporator out real quick, if it'll come out, why would it come out? There we go. We've got the heater hoses coming in right here. One of them had to go up and around these evaporator fittings, whatever. That one just went straight over here. And then the heater box fits in here too. I did have to cut some more off of this guy over here. It just wasn't fitting with the angle and everything. So we got that all hooked up. It's loosely hooked up right now because it's gonna have to come out again so I can paint the engine bay, but everything fits. And I know this seems like just like a really small victory, if you'll even call it that, but that took hours just to get the hoses to fit in there. I actually had to redo them twice to get everything in the right spot. But in the engine bay here, we've got the fittings coming out. They're gonna angle down. The hose will go along the frame rail and then right up here into the water pump. And I think I said this before, but we're using AN lines, and that is because regular heater hoses, you won't see them behind the heater core and under the dash and stuff, but in the engine bay, you'll see these. And so they have a nylon sheathing on the outside, so they look better. They have a steel core on the inside, and they're super easy to put together too. So you have these fittings right here. You take the top of it off, you put that on your hose right there. You take the bottom of your fitting, you put it in your non-marring vise attachment thing, and I'll do this with my knee. So you got it like that, and then you just take your hose and your fitting, put it right onto there, screw it on down, and that gives you your line. The little fittings that go on the hard heater pipes, I figured out how those work. We're gonna use them on the water pump too, and inside of here is just 2 pieces that screw together. They sandwich an O-ring in there, and then the O-ring compresses down when they tighten, and it seals itself around that hard pipe. And I think they're gonna be pretty good because the part I had to cut off, if you look at it, whenever it seals, it bites down on there and it crimps the pipe. So they should be pretty good to go. Also on this little hardline adapter guide, there's a raised bead on these heater pipes before you cut them. And the instructions say, if you can keep the bead, keep the bead. And so what I found was this little guy right here. So this is a bead maker tool for when you can't take your pipe and put it in like a standard bead roller. So the way this works is you put it inside your pipe, you twist this nut on the outside or bolt on the outside, and it extends these ball bearings. It's got 3 ball bearings in there. And then you put your wrench on the bigger bolt and you turn it around and it puts a bead on your pipe from inside the pipe, which is pretty cool. So I'll link to that and other things we're using today in the description, which I will, before we fire up the car for the first time, I will put some water through there with a pump and test them. I just don't have an adapter right now to do that, so I'll do that later. All right, I take that back because it's a few days later and now I have these, which are 10 AN fittings, and they go to a hose barb on the other end. So we're gonna put that into a hose, believe it or not. That will go to a drill pump, and we're going to pump some distilled water through the heater system and see if anything leaks right after I tighten the inside hoses. And if there are any leaks, which means I can't tighten bolts, we're gonna go with strawberry pickle beer, and I will drink that. Only if there's leaks. All right, so we've got water in through the drill pump and the water coming out into the bucket with the hose that's way too short. So I'm gonna stand here and pump. Y'all go inside and watch and see if there's any leaks. All right, so that was an entire gallon of water through the system. I did see coolant come out so that we're also flushing the heater core, which is good. And in here, I don't see any leaks there. No leak on that one. And over here, I'm not seeing any leaks either. Which means I do not have to drink that pickle beer. And AN lines are kind of foolproof. Although, the sky is leaking. I don't know if that counts or not. So I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what else is left to do with the engine in the car before we pull it back out and paint the engine bay. And I think the answer is not really much. So I do still need to get a little bit more clearance on the headers right here. But the thing is, I think I'm just gonna pull the engine out a little bit, do some banging, and then put it back in to make sure I have the clearance exactly how I want it. And then we'll pull the engine all the way out. I also need to do the shifter. Let me show you that. So the Camaro shifter for this transmission would have come up approximately right there, which is no good. That's in the wrong spot. We want our shifter to be here. So there are shifter relocation kits you can get for the TR6060, which is what we have. And this is the one we have right here. So the transmission where the transmission input is actually like right up here somewhere. And so the way this works is you have your transmission input up here. You have this manufactured thing of sorts that brings your shift knob back to approximately, I think it's gonna be like right there. And so we need to get that in there. The only thing is you have to get access to the transmission in order to put that in. So we need to bolt that up, make sure it comes in the right spot, or comes out in the right spot. Then also we might need to do like a little bit of trimming on this piece of metal right here. So I'd like to get that done before we paint the underside of the car. So I think that's the next big step. I'm going to pull the engine a little bit, do some banging, get the shifter thing to fit, and then I think we're on to taking this stuff out, getting all those holes plugged up where the heater core and stuff was. Still need to work on the wiring harness some more, and then we'll be ready to paint this thing, or at least the engine bay. It was all going so well until it wasn't. strawberry pickle beer because I failed to exercise caution while drilling. This one can't even really taste the strawberry. It just kind of tastes like a regular pickle beer, and it's all over my arm too. So yeah, I may have gotten carried away. The thing is, last time I put the engine in, the front bumper was kind of in the way, so I was like, hey, let's take the bumper off. So I did, and I was like, hey, the fenders are gonna have to come off to paint the engine bay, plus we're getting new fenders anyway, so let's take those off. And so I did, and then other stuff started coming out, and now we're left with, well, not a whole lot. So we got to the point where I was using the drill. This is a spot weld drill bit, and what it does is we had these little, brackets for heat shield that is no longer going to be able to be there because it is in the way of the exhaust. So I was drilling out the spot welds, and it works really well until you go too far and you just drill right through your car. So yeah, I'm gonna have to weld a hole or two back up later. But we're making progress. So yeah, engine is out. Firewall has been clearanced a little bit more. I think that should give us enough room for the headers. I'm going to put the shifter thingamajig on there here in a second. We'll put the engine back in, make sure everything clears, and then probably take the engine back out, take more stuff off, and then we'll paint it. There you have engine back in a car again. So headers, we have clearance now. In fact, if I didn't know better, I'd say maybe I banged a little bit too much. And then inside the car here, the shifter, you know what? If I didn't know better, I'd say I know how to measure, but I know I don't. So I don't know how that wound up there, but it's there. We got gears and stuff. We didn't even have to cut. Like it just fit. It's nice. It's in there. There's plenty of room. It's almost like, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch of clearance. That's good to go. So things are starting to fall into place. Still working on the wiring harness. I'll get there eventually, but I think I've made enough of a mess for today. So that's what we're gonna call it. Next episode, and just coming back out again, we'll drop the subframe, we'll get everything else out of there, we'll paint some stuff. So that's all coming soon. So until next time, just remember, anyone can take stuff apart. I just hope it goes back together. See you later.